What's up, waves, and welcome back to Anime Lane, the podcast where we take you down the yellow brick road of anime and have a look at everything it has to offer. As always, I'm your host, Notorious, and joining me once again today are Shaun.
Hello.
And Melina.
Hi.
You guys are on, because we're recording this remotely, which I think is the first ever episode for all three of us that we're doing it like this. I almost got confused, because Shaun's normally to my right and Melina to my left, but on Discord... It's the other way around. Shaun's on my left, Melina's on my right, and I got very, very confused. I was like, have I fucked up the intro?
No.
I also feel like I should slow down the intro at some point, because I just can autopilot blaze through that quite quickly now at this point.
I'd say that's progress.
Yeah, I wonder if I can set a record for how fast.
I mean, just do faster. Every episode is faster until it's
So
fully intelligible.
The podcast where we take down the yellow brick road of anime and have a look at everything it has to offer.
At this rate, in about 3 years' time, it'll just be a slight scream.
Yeah. I just did it. Do you want to see you do it again? On today's weird and wacky fucking episode, this was originally meant to be like an experimental thing where rather than just talking about a movie, we're kind of going to look at the, kind of production aspect of it, because, much like movies, anime can have stories and stuff on the behind the scenes. Some of it's very interesting. And I guess at this point I should segue into introducing what we're talking about, which is my detested, my loathed, my arch nemesis, Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within.
If I could do a good wah-wah, I would have done it there, but unfortunately I cannot.
I don't want to use the soundboard in an episode.
So yeah, the interesting thing about this is that it is one of 3 Final Fantasy movies that exist, and it's the only one.
More.
You would think, but they did this one, so
that's fair enough.
And it was this whole thing of it began production before the release of Final Fantasy VII, and it didn't come out until the release of Final Fantasy X. I think it came out within a week of that. But it also had to contend with then coming out after Star Wars, Phantom Menace, 2 years after.
Yeah.
So it was this very ambitious project at the time that then evolved into, sure, when it comes out, for its era of 2001, it is very impressive visually.
Yeah, I will say that within the first scene anyway, where she's having that dream, I remember thinking I was very impressed.
Yeah.
Because for 2001, that is very good CG.
Yeah, some of the cinematography is still very strong. It just kind of falls apart.
Period. It just falls apart.
There was an end to that sentence, but you don't really need one.
No, there's just So I was like, yeah, this could be an interesting thing to look into, because I had a brief read of the Wikipedia page one night for some fucking reason.
Yeah, it's one of those nights, where
sometimes
I want to know.
On 5 different Wikipedia articles, some nights.
I think I remembered it existed, and then, there I am. It's 2 a.m. I'm reading about this, and it sounds very interesting. And then I begin the research process, and it's all just the same 3 or 4 bits of information that appear on the Wikipedia page that I could find within articles, because I think, despite the relative oddity that this film is in the grand scheme of movies and anime, no one's done a big retrospective investigative look at its production, which is what a lot of, when you hear about films being a shit show behind the scenes, it comes from these, kind of big interviews that are done later on, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
The weird thing is that even after the release of the film, Hironobu Sakaguchi, the director who also created Final Fantasy and directed the first 5 video games, was still happy with it. And I have
Really?
numerous questions about how.
Yeah, I have problems with that.
He said he wouldn't change anything.
Well, I feel like, you know, when people say a project is never truly done,
Yeah.
even if you think nothing should be changed, that should be from a mentality of, I'm so done with this, I want to get it
Yeah,
over
exactly,
with.
like-
Not from a, it's perfect, I wouldn't change a thing. Because I've never had a project where I look back and be like, I wouldn't change a single thing.
Oh no,
Yeah,
there's
like,
always something.
I feel
Yeah.
like in this situation, I can't believe I'm saying this, you need to take a page from George Lucas's. I'm mentioning this because we mentioned Star Wars earlier,
Mhm.
but with projects like this has to be one of those movies where you look back and go, oh, I do so many different things now.
Yeah, and I don't know if some of it is purely in the fact that Hironobu Sakaguchi, I'm just going to call him Sakaguchi from now on, is Japanese, but most of the production staff and most of the all of the cast are American, and it was all, you know, produced in Hawaii. So I don't know if there's an element of... To call it lost in translation would be weird, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the phrase I was thinking of, but I was also thinking that might not be completely accurate.
Yeah.
Because I do, like, in its pacing, I would say it has more of what we've seen in anime. We've seen, like, a slower pacing, where
Yeah.
sometimes it can feel like just one elongated act 2.
Yeah,
And this
that
movie
is-
suffers from that a
Yes.
lot.
Shenro.
So maybe it's just, you know, different cultural standards for the way we pace and structure our films.
That
maybe.
is typically true. I believe Japan has a 5-act structure that goes back to, like, I'm gonna fuck it up in my recollection of this. I believe it's kabuki plays, or it's those kind of plays
Yeah.
where there are there's different story setup, payoff, and, you know, general structure and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So some of that could, you know, come from that, but at the same time, this very much just does have, like, a very large and bloated middle act.
It really does.
Yeah. Because they kind of, what I know is, like, to start talking about plot-ish. In the beginning, they're like, oh, she's on the planet, people are dying, and then she goes back, and he's infected. I'm like, I don't know these people. I don't care about these people. Why are you, like, I don't care if this guy dies. Like,
We only just saw his face for the first time just before he gets put on that operating table, I think.
I
Yeah,
think so,
and
yeah,
it-
because he's in a helmet up until that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, so we've got no... I mean, you can have, like, characters like that where you have an attachment, but, like, not in this movie.
No, like, we have known them for him, Alec Baldwin's character. We'll get to the cast.
we'll get there.
We've known him for a solid 5 minutes at
And they're like,
best.
he is actively dying. I'm like, okay.
Like, we don't even realize he's going to be the love interest at this point.
It
No.
also simultaneously tries to set up that they have a past too quickly and too abruptly.
You're
think
right,
Yeah.
they
when
have a
they
past.
meet-
I completely forgot about that.
Because as soon as she's like, oh, you know, I have clearance to be here or whatever.
I don't need to be scanned, bro.
Well, no, before that, when she's, like, first kind of captured by them or
Ah,
whatever,
yeah.
she's like, well, I'm allowed to be here. And he's like, I think the fuck not, because I know you. And it's like, sure, let's go
Cool.
with this,
Okay.
I guess.
What a dynamic. Huh. It's they just throw you in there like, you care. I'm like, no, I
No, I
don't.
don't.
No, I don't. It's, she must get the plans. I'm like, she seems kind of irresponsible if you ask me. Like, I don't know where the fuck she wants this planned.
I also think this is another interesting, like, conflict for this movie in that it attempts to go, okay, so you should care about whoever character, or you should care about this thing, but you're just kind of reeling and getting over the fact that you've heard, like, maybe 4 or 5 recognizable voices in a Final Fantasy movie.
Yeah.
You know, you've just heard Alec Baldwin, Ving Rhames, Steve Buscemi, and some other woman.
Ming Na Wen, I think, is the
No,
main
okay, so
character.
Ming,
right?
No,
Ming
the
Na
other-
Wen is the main girl, but
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the squad that she is arrested by, there's Alec
Oh.
Baldwin, Ving Rhames,
Yeah.
Steve Buscemi, and a woman called Perry Gilpin, who
Yeah.
is not the same caliber as the rest of this
No,
cast.
she's very
No
much
offense to her.
a very like I'm looking at the cast list right now. I'm seeing all like the faces here, and she very much stands out. 'Cause
As
she's in between Ving Rames. I'm
Ving
so
Rhames.
sorry. Yeah,
I have said it
And-
like 3 times now.
I know. You know I'm terrible at remembering names. And James Woods, and she's just like sitting there right in the middle of the cast, and I'm just like, who are you?
Because it is like this massive. Well, I say massive. It's a Hollywood cast.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I'd say so. Yeah.
And Perry Gilpin, I'll be honest, even when I look at her filmography, I don't know anything.
Mm.
I don't know her from anything, I should say. Like, I don't recognize. Like, I haven't seen the things she's been in.
Mhm.
It seems she's I would go so far looking at her filmography to maybe call her a character actor.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting like right now.
Mm.
She does look kind of like the one from the X-Files. A little bit.
I don't know the X-Files well enough to have any
I
comment.
think I know what you mean, but it's also.
I know they're called Mulder and Scully, but I could not tell you which one is Mulder and which one is Scully. I think
I'm
I
sure
feel
that
like we've had this conversation before.
I'm pretty sure the
Probably.
female agent is Scully. I haven't seen X-Files, but
Okay.
I
I
know
would
what
have
you're talking about.
just from the sound of it, I would have said the opposite, but I do not know anything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's apparently a good show, and I do like that kind of thing. So I've been meaning to get to it, but it's so long.
Yeah. It's very much an episodic 90s show.
Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway,
Anyway, we're going off topic because we don't want to talk about this movie.
No.
where
yeah.
do we start?
I want to talk about some strategies they have for these ghost phantoms where they're like, okay, they can go through walls. I'm like, okay, why are you running away from them?
That's a good fucking question.
Yeah.
like if I'm faced with a monster that can go through walls, I'm like, well, there's nothing I can do, really,
Yeah, you're
is there?
sort of fucked in that
But
scenario.
they
Yeah,
need
it's
to
like-
have like some sort of way of repelling them.
They don't really explain it well.
No, they're
No.
like, we have these guns that distract them and the beacons. I'm like, yeah, they don't seem to be working very well, though.
And they seem
Yeah.
to have
For something you just introduced.
shields as well. Like there's a shield.
New York has a shield, which the stupid guy then disables, and he's like, oh, we'll be fine until everyone gets killed.
I love that. That is one of the moments that we've all of us have pointed out as like, what the fuck did you expect?
This fucking guy. Okay, I want to talk about the villain.
This James Woods character. By the
I
way,
want
we
to talk
should
about.
point out.
I want to talk about the villain because I hate this villain just so much.
They
He's
present
so
him
fucking
immediately.
stupid.
Yes!
He's so fucking stupid. How is he the general of the army? How did he get there?
It's the leather
Is that
coat.
something
Everyone
important?
looks
That's
at
the
him.
only way I can sort of
It's the
rationalize
coat.
it. He's so fucking stupid.
Yeah.
His
He's
main plan is sorry, I keep cutting you guys off. His main plan
You're
It's-
ranting, it's fine.
his main plan is like in the middle of the movie is to open the barrier to let the phantoms in. He opens the barrier and then he goes, "Oh my god, I've let the phantoms in. Why did I do that?"
No,
And then he
I think
disappears for half an hour.
Middle point of this is, I'ma blow up the aliens. That is his step one of his master plan. It's like, well, of course, yes. Let's
Well, yeah,
blow up
nah.
the aliens. It's like, should we not try figure out what they are? It's like, nah, let's fucking nuke them. Why bother? Research who? Nah.
Why ask questions when pew pew?
Call it the Zeus as well. I was like, well, that's, I don't want to say that's a bit of a boring name. I feel like you could have done better, like Space Laser or some shit.
I think, interestingly, I was going to say that's maybe a reference to the games, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't think Zeus has appeared as anything in a Final Fantasy game when they kind of use those kind of names for
Yeah.
summons. So Odin is kind of one of the big ones that feature throughout the game. So it would have made more sense to call it Odin, in my opinion.
Just have it as a little reference, I would say.
Yeah.
That's
But at the same time, I guess this was originally how I was going to open the episode. How familiar are both of you with like Final Fantasy prior to seeing this movie? I can gauge roughly. I know roughly the answer to these questions, but I need to ask it for the sake of the podcast.
Shaun, do you want to go first?
I feel like your answer is going to be way shorter than mine.
So, I don't know jack shit, but in my head, if you tell me Final Fantasy, what my mental picture was of that was Mortal Kombat. So, that's all I have.
That's
I don't
not
know how.
what I
I
expect.
know.
No.
I know, because
They are
I watched
vastly
it,
different games.
but I've never seen anything from Final Fantasy, and I just, in my head, I was like, probably similar, because I'd never heard anything about gameplay or what's it like, what's about, never. So in my head, I was just scrambling to find something. And as soon as we started watching the movie, because I watched it with my boyfriend, I paused it like 10 minutes in. It's like, I have to admit that this is very different from what I thought this is gonna be.
To be honest, I will say this is a terrible like intro to Final Fantasy.
I was gonna say we'll circle back to that as a thing. So Shaun, your experience.
Okay, so I haven't played much Final Fantasy. The only game I've played is the 7 remake, which was about a year ago now. Jesus Christ.
It was. Jesus.
But like I know about my Final Fantasy because just of the online spaces I've been in, that you just sort of learn enough through like osmosis.
Yeah.
So I know a bit about Final. I don't know like enough to really tell you the stories that much.
I mean that's fair. In a sense, I guess I couldn't really do the same.
Okay, that
Even
doesn't
though in the room I'm probably the one. Well, I'm not probably. I am the one
You
most
are.
familiar with it. I've played.
Yeah.
I've played 7, 10. Haven't finished 10. 13. I didn't finish 13 either because 13 is 13.
I know enough to know 13-ish. Yeah.
I am currently addicted to 14. I've played 15 and got the platinum trophy for that one. And I own most of the games at this point in some capacity. I have 8 and 9 as well. And I again know a lot about the different games through cultural osmosis, because I think if you're part of the anime community, Final Fantasy kind of comes as like a little side, thing of it. So the overall thing here is that this is just not Final Fantasy.
From what I'm aware of Final Fantasy, this is not like anything to do with Final Fantasy.
So after 6, 6, 7, 8 all had like a kind of steampunk sci-fi. Like
I want to just get this out there. Every entry in the series is in a different world, isn't it?
Yes. Unless we're talking about the direct sequels, like 10-2, 13-2, because that's how numbers work, I guess.
That 7 Crisis Core.
Yes, there's also the there's the compilation of things, which is like where they decide that one title is deserving of all these different spin-offs and things. So 7 has Crisis Core, Dirge of Cerberus, the Advent Children movie, a bunch of books and a manga, and then 15 they started to do that with before it had even come out. It came out and then they swiftly gave up on it because not many people liked 15, even though I very much love it.
Basically, rule of thumb, every numbered entry is a different universe.
Yes. So yeah, like after with 6, 7, and 8, they kind of moved away from like hard fantasy, so to speak, where it was, you are the warrior of light who is gonna, repair the crystals and restore the kingdom and defeat the overarching evil.
More general high fantasy, yeah.
Yeah, more general high fantasy. That was what made Final Fantasy, the inclusion of crystals, some kind of warrior of light, a 4 to 5 person party, or 3 in the case of, I think it was the second game for some reason.
Sure.
And then with 6, I should say, being one of the later SNES titles, they kind of started to experiment with that, and then 7 being the big flagship PS1 title, they kind of moved into adding other genre elements into it, and so a lot of them feature kind of steampunk-esque influences.
I can sort of chime in here with, like, because what I played, again, the 7 remake, which is like really the first act of 7 from what I'm aware of. That one's a lot more cyberpunk-ish. It's still got fantasy elements, but it's got a cyberpunk sort of aesthetic around it. I don't know. I wouldn't call it steampunk.
No, remake's a little different, but I'd still say it airs more towards steampunk than it does cyberpunk.
I'm not sure. Anyway.
Anyway.
Going on with something.
My point being that, like, even as a, you know, they went on and incorporated more sci-fi elements, this is just pure sci-fi. There is no fantasy to this, I would say.
No, because even the sort of spirits are explained to be aliens.
Yes. So it kind of takes this whole idea of, like, oh, there's some kind of spiritual connection here, and then it just throws that out the fucking window later. And they make a hybrid alien. I don't know how the film ends. I don't get the ending. I don't get it.
It's hard for me to understand the plot.
It just kind of ended, because as it was ending, I was like, no, I don't know what's happening here. I need to understand something, please, for the love of God.
As I think at the point where they're in, like, a car after, you know, James Wood has let the aliens in.
And they're trying... James Wood's moment.
I'm sorry. I want to just make note of the fucking dialogue in this movie, because it is hilarious. It is the most predictable, funny, amazing stuff. Like, there were so many lines where it's like, she's going to say, yep, there you go. That's exactly it. One of my favorites being the bad guy saying, what have I done?
That was a standout, because it's so... I had the Revenge of the Sith Anakin. What have I done?
But the best one is when one of the guys gets hurt after they crash the car, and he's, like, stabbed somewhere with something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Are you okay? Ouch. That is it. Ouch. Because it was in such manly, like, clearly not in pain voice, that it was just, ouch. Like, that's it.
I want to scream in terror, but I don't want to sound like a girl.
That's one interesting thing I think that of this movie is that what I initially thought was that the actors all motion captured this and voice acted it, you know, kind of how you expect these sort of things to be done now.
Yeah.
No.
Did they do it separately? Because if so, you could fucking tell.
It wasn't even like
different fucking wavelengths emotion wise.
Yeah, and it's entirely different people who motion captured all of the acting.
Oh, that is a shame.
So the whole dialogue is just very bad voice direction.
Yeah, because there were times where you could tell two characters were interacting and you were like, you're not responding to their tone. You're just responding to their lines.
I brought this up to Shaun. I was like, at some point, Steve Buscemi doesn't feel like he's really in the movie. He feels like various different clips of Steve Buscemi cut up and inserted.
Yeah, they did his voice with AI.
So they just gave him a long list of lines. They're like, go ahead, we'll just press record. And he just goes, oh no!
It'll be like
it's like all the battle cries, and
it'll be like Elder Scrolls, like Oblivion, where they gave his lines alphabetically and just sort of put them all together for the scene.
God.
Yeah.
I was glad even sometimes they're like, I know CGI, it's difficult, even motion capture. Emotion-wise, they were kind of all over the place, facial expression, which you know, you don't fault them for, but there were times where it was like, Jesus Christ.
I think the facial expressions were all done by the animators as
Mm.
well. So I don't think those were mocapped. I believe that was all.
That would make sense because I didn't really get the idea that like the faces were mocapped. You could sort of, especially in this era.
Yeah, that wouldn't really happen until a bit later. And I also think like they took a weird approach to this where like they mocapped it, but they also then had the animators go in and occasionally do some animation themselves where they just didn't feel it worked out right, which makes everything just feel really disjointed, I guess.
Yeah, they like generally I felt like most characters walked with like a heaviness to them.
Yeah.
They really kind of dragged as their I don't know, I was like, maybe it's just a space thing. That was my first thing. Maybe some gravity shit. I don't fucking know.
That would be a good explanation if they
weren't.
thought that.
Yeah, if they weren't on Earth.
Yeah.
To me, the best way to describe this whole experience was just several cutscenes from a game squished together.
Yes, very much so.
It's just because you're watching it and you're waiting to turn to like whoever you are as a character, and I'm like, I want to see some stupid ass looking guy, like some guy in like some customized pink armor. I'm like, show it to me, show me.
The green or blue dyed hair.
Exactly. Yeah.
It does kind of feel like there's massive sections of gameplay that you just aren't getting to experience as a viewer.
Yeah, I will say there were large sections of this where the only thought I could have was like, I feel like I'm watching a PS2 cutscene, and I really just want to get to the gameplay.
I think I'd say maybe early PS3 era.
Yeah, I was thinking like late PS2, but
I still feel like PS2 is defined by not quite getting the human form.
It depends on the game.
I mean, have you seen Final Fantasy X?
Yeah, but that was also early PS2.
It was 2001.
Yeah, and the PS2 was only out for a year at that point.
Very true. I wouldn't say 12 improved much, though.
I haven't seen enough of 12.
Yeah, it's an odd one. It's a very messy movie in many regards.
Yeah.
Just from like basic decision making, like you have Final Fantasy, which at this point had now 10 games at the point of this fucking thing coming out. And at this point, 10 was the only one that didn't have Nobuo Uematsu, the series composer, working on his own. Up until that point, he had done every single game. He was the sole composer. Why the fuck didn't he compose this movie? Because it just sounds so bland.
It is. Another point that I have to make, it's especially in the beginning sequence where we do not give a shit about anyone. They make a quick reference to, ooh, these two might have dated. Most romantic music ever plays. I'm like, no, you can't attempt to make me care, because I still don't fucking care. And then when he's like dying, they're like, tense music. I'm like, no, you can't just try to make me feel tense, because I don't care if this guy dies. Like, I know filmmaking techniques. No, but you can't just push it in and hope it works, because you haven't established anything. God.
I will say, it's been about 2 weeks since I watched this, and I cannot remember a single fucking, like, piece of music from this.
I just remember...
It was all too generic as well.
Yeah, a lot of generic orchestral stuff. You know, just that Hollywood, lots of strings.
Did it end with a sort of pop song? Or am I making that up?
Oh, yes, this is the thing. So there are 2 songs in the credits.
Can I just talk about how like it did a very similar ending to the Doom movie, where like they're on like that like left right at like before the credits go, and it's like a bright light.
Yeah, that's true.
Right.
I couldn't avoid that comparison when I watched it, and I almost screamed.
The final song that plays at the end of the film is The Dream Within, which is sung by Lara Fabian, who I don't know.
Yeah, that's not a familiar name to me.
But to me, it kind of is the same vibe as 13 having who was it that sang that? She was like the X Factor winner, I think.
I'm not
I
gonna
have
know.
no idea.
I'm gonna quickly look it up.
Is it not? It's not Susan Boyle, is it?
No.
Does that be a twist?
That would be so good.
Yeah, I'd listen to that.
Leona Lewis.
Yes.
She sings the opening song in the English version for some reason.
Can't say I would have expected that.
No.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for her.
Good for her.
I think.
Then you have the other song that shows up after that one ends, which is by the Japanese band, whose name I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce because I think it's half French. So it's
Love it when that happens.
L'Arc-en-Ciel. I'll link it in the chat so that
we can all have a nice attempt.
Yes, I really like this band. They are very good. The song they picked for this is not.
Fair
Yeah.
point.
Like it's fine. It's not their best work. They're very beloved in the anime community for having done some pretty banging openings.
There was some banging tunes.
Yes, this was actually, I think, right before they kind of hit it big. So I guess playing to the wrong audience though, in some capacity, considering this came out in America first.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of really odd decisions, like it being a primarily English-driven Hollywood production in that sense, where you have a Japanese director who wrote the original script. It was then rewritten by two American guys, and then all the actors, they are big Hollywood. Well, I guess some of them were. Ming-Na Wen was kind of about to hit it big, and Alec Baldwin kind of. This was right around his weird transition period of his 90s movies to the comedy stuff he would do a bit later.
This is right around the time when he was in the greatest movie of all time, Thomas the Tank Engine and the Magic Railroad.
Oh god, that's right.
Oh, God.
They came out the same year, I think.
Yeah.
His press tours must have been hilarious. Which one is this? Sci-fi?
I genuinely believe he was loving every second of it.
Magic Railroad came out a year before this.
Oh.
So he came to set. Everyone's like, "How you been?" I was like, "I just finished this great movie."
Comes in full conductor outfit.
He would have been recording dialogue for this before Magic Railroad would have went into production, and he would have had to do like both concurrently for a bit.
That's amazing.
I guess
I just imagine the same in studio. It's just okay. We finished our lines for this one. Can you just? We're gonna transition to Thomas the Tank.
Oh wait, no. Thomas the Tank is live action. He was actually legitimately
really
in that movie. Like, that's what I'm saying. God. He's in a conductor outfit.
I thought he was just really, method acting his voice role.
No, he's in that movie.
He's in that
movie. I grew up with that
He is
movie.
known for method acting, especially current days.
Could we not go into that?
Let's not talk about that.
We're not going into that. We're not, just because we mentioned him doesn't mean we have to go into that.
Yeah, that's a messy situation.
We're
not today. Not today.
Not today. Let's let it rust a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about the religious undertones of the spirits within.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to transition this into something completely different for a second. Can someone please explain to me what makes one of the 8 spirits that they need? Because they don't really explain what specific spirits they need to like power the device.
Luck is what I assume.
Because like it's the MacGuffins, it's the MacGuffins of the movie, and they don't explain it.
No, they just do not care.
From what if I try to explain it best, is things have vibes. Let's combine these massive vibes to then opposite those vibes, and that will just eradicate the bad vibes.
This is not good storytelling.
like the seventh spirit is the one that like Ming-Na Wen's character has.
Yeah, it was within her all along. I'm sorry, I
No,
almost
she's the
fucking
final spirit, isn't she?
No, they said one of the phantoms is the final spirit,
Oh,
and it
right,
was the
yeah,
bit
yeah,
of
yeah.
phantom within
Oh,
her.
that's when they
I
go
fucking
into.
threw
That's when
up.
they go into.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's when they go into the planet and they go to Gaia. Which,
God?
you know,
Question mark.
let's just, you know,
Yeah.
not make the whole environmentalism thing over, you know, bearing or anything by calling it literally Gaia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, Final Fantasy VII did it way better.
Yes, yeah. It came out probably the same year this went into production. And it done the whole environmental storytelling thing,
Yeah.
environmentalism storytelling thing
framework.
far better. And it
perfect
was like
framework.
a small part of that game.
I mean, it was good enough because I remember it.
Yeah, but like in the because you've played remake, I've played a chunk of the original game, and that section of the game is just like the first 8 hours, and it's still better than what this movie did.
Yeah, agreed.
It's just the monsters were so overpowered, but kind of like nothing happened because you know when you have expendable characters.
There we go. That's it. Someone's finally said it. Nothing happened.
Nothing happened. Like they go to the planet, they're being followed, but we're like, oh, you know, we know all these people except for this guy. Guess who's gonna die? The guy that we don't fucking know. And that's when we first learn, oh, it can go through ships. I'm like, well, how? If it just needs to go waft through a ship and kill everyone, why don't they fucking do it? Because they can't.
I love that part in the movie where like they're with like a group of like other guys who are like,
oh, this is where they get turned on.
Yeah, they get turned on by like the guys loyal to.
They get.
Excuse me?
No, they don't get turned on. They get turned on.
You're saying the same thing.
Melina,
tomato.
Could
have just went past that. No one had to make it weird. Anyway, like they're being.
I think I watched a different version or something.
They're being betrayed by the people loyal to the general.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But then a giant phantom monster comes in.
And Doctor Strange is that bitch.
Yeah, Doctor Strange is the one or two guys there that are the bad guys, leaving the good guys completely unharmed for no fucking reason.
Which, let's point out, just two to deal with a group of 5? Who the fuck decided that?
The general is not fucking smart. We've been over this. He's fucking stupid.
He watched on his little map. He was like, oh, there's one coming right toward us. I'm like, on this map, it's going through the halls. Why the fuck is it following the hall? If it can just
no. It's going through like pipes of like bio energy. Or
they don't have to.
But
apparently they can channel them into there.
What does that do?
But they don't need to.
No, I don't get it either.
What's the plus of doing that compared to not?
Apparently they tried to put them in there because they thought that the spirits couldn't survive in there.
They were fucking wrong.
Did. This movie just baffles me.
It could have been a plot where like the human characters don't they don't know what they're doing, and they could have they don't.
Yeah.
Because they make it clear, it's like, we don't understand what they are, and it's like, oh, they're ghosts, actually. I'm like, you've been killing ghosts, though. Like,
you've been calling them phantoms, and you didn't know they were fucking ghosts.
Yeah.
What did you think they were?
Like, they see them, and they're like, let's call them a phantom. I was like, well, what if they actually are? What are you talking about? No. That's ridiculous. You're being ridiculous.
To look and act like phantoms so much that we called them phantoms would be phantoms? Fucking stupid.
But that's kind of the whole point of the scene where like they're talking in the boardroom thing with I don't know, characters that never fucking show up again in the rest of the movie.
Correct.
And they're kind of like, oh no, that would be ridiculous if the things we called phantoms were actually phantoms.
Wouldn't that just be insane? Looks to the camera.
Yeah, and then, the whole scientist is like, well, maybe the Earth's not that. And they're like, you're being absolutely ridiculous. No, let's kill the phantoms that aren't phantoms. Okay, everyone? Let's send the giant fucking laser. But wait, no, I am part phantom. It's like,
Don't
part
care.
ghost? So you're dead. No, you're not dead.
We also need to talk about the fact that this film has space stations.
Yeah.
And it just never really addresses that fact.
No. Why would they?
It was very confusing. I'm gonna be honest. For a while, I thought they were on the space station for like the vast majority of it. And it was
Yeah.
only later that I realized, oh, they're still on Earth.
They're in New York,
Yeah.
which has old New York out in the
Yeah, but they're not called New York. They're called New York. I've just been saying New York to make it clear.
I hate-
Not New York.
But they still specify old New York.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
the thing.
They throw it in there in the beginning. It's like, we are old New York. I'm like, there's a new one?
Yeah.
We have another
At that
new
point,
one?
just call it York.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. That's what I was saying. It's such a small thing, but I hate that they call it Old New York because that sets me off.
They could have just gone with the old city. Like, that
Yeah.
would have been fine.
Abandoned New York, destroyed
Yeah.
New York, whatever you want to call it. Don't call it Old New York because that just sounds stupid.
Rude.
Good old New York.
Uh,
Oh,
It is just
crisis
fucking
settings.
chaos. Anything.
you
but
might have run
old New
into
York.
problems with actual Crisis, the game, because the second one takes place in New York.
I don't care. I don't think the movie cares.
This has been an interesting conversation about it. It wasn't an interesting movie. That's
No.
the thing.
Like, weirdly enough, it felt, even though the pacing was horrible, it felt to go by pretty fast. It wasn't
okay, hold on.
horribly
We were talking
dragging.
about this like yesterday. I'm starting to think you might be wired wrong. Because you said the
I
We
wouldn't
know
say it like
this.
that.
You said the same thing about the B movie.
Yes.
And this movie to me felt like it went on for fucking ever.
Like, it was boring to a point where I would check gradually how I'm doing, like how far I'm in.
Mhm.
And I was never like, oh my god, I'm only this far.
I was.
Oh, I was.
Really?
Yeah.
At the end, I was bringing it up and I'm like, oh my god, that was only 10 minutes. There's still another 30 to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. I checked at 30. I'm like, well, it makes sense, if there's literally no fucking act one, or it was maybe 20 fucking seconds at most.
There was
I
a part-
suppose this were.
there was a part where only 10 minutes had passed, and I genuinely said to myself, I thought 30 minutes had passed.
I think I messaged Shaun at like 50 minutes in and went, I'm sorry, I feel like I've watched a whole movie. Because they do cram in like a whole fucking movie's worth of stuff.
Yeah.
She lands on Earth. She gets captured. No, she has this whole encounter with the Phantoms. She gets captured by the people who she's actually friends with. Turns out he's infected. They detain him, I guess. No, wait, no.
He dies. Doesn't
She
die.
saves him. I don't fucking know. Then there's this whole boardroom meeting thing where we have the Albert Wesker looking motherfucker show up.
And wait, before that, they have, or after, I don't remember, the scientist and Aki is her name,
Aki,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, have a whole conversation, very 1984, like, we must destroy our notes.
Oh,
we must
yeah!
keep the information in our heads. They
That's,
will prosecute us.
That's Donald Sutherland's character that tells her to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, like, legit, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, so, okay, environmentalists bad? People that believe in God bad? Okay, okay,
What message?
okay.
What are you aiming for?
It's like, he just throws away this whole book of notes. I'm like, he could have just hit it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the thing.
Yeah, like, seems like there've been nooks and crannies. You could just kind of chuck it.
There's
Seems
there's
easier.
nobody outside. You can bury it somewhere.
But then the Phantoms might get it.
Oh, the Phantoms are just gonna.
I
read
don't
the
think the
notes.
Phantoms can read.
Yeah, they're gonna just pick up the notes and put on their Phantom glasses and just be like, yes, I see. Look at all this evidence.
Spirits, you say?
Yeah. Yeah, it me.
Yeah. Look, maybe the fact that it went fast for me is because I had another just full-on giggle fit in the middle about something completely unrelated that then took over.
What did you? What
Well,
was
yeah,
it
I want
this
to
time?
know.
What was it last time again? Oh, it was something like Barry get the car,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and then
was
it
it this
just
time?
turned to Mokodotiv get the locomotive and shit like that.
What?
Okay, that was creative.
No, we were watching it. I think what was the name of the film again? Oh, it was the
Pro-
firefighter
Promare.
one.
Yeah, Promare.
Yeah, Promare.
Yeah, it was Promare, you're right. And it just turned into we'd be silent for a second. Michael, get the bicycle.
Van, get the van.
Yeah.
Also, let's
And
not
I don't know
forget
why
that you also called D and Vampire Hunter D Dungo.
Dongo.
Dungo.
Dongo. He deserved that name. Come on. I'm not naming someone a fucking letter.
To get back on track.
For this movie, my giggle moment was I don't know where this came from, but every word with a B I replaced with the word penis.
Why?
What?
That's
We're talking
Melina,
about
I need you
penis.
to be.
Where did penis come from?
She's talking to her boyfriend.
Yeah.
My boyfriend. Oh.
I don't think he knows.
I don't think he knows. No, Manuel is making an off-screen cameo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Beepus?
it's a meme.
Yes.
Okay.
This is getting stranger.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
And that was Melina's boyfriend Manuel making his second
second
appearance on
appearance.
Anime Lane.
I knew we'd get him here back soon, but I just didn't realize it'd be in this form.
Unfortunately, the origin of the term penis has not been discovered.
It's lost media now.
I need to confirm here. Venus as in penis with a B?
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Why?
Just as anything would happen, and sometimes be, oh no, the penis, and it's just something so stupid that it just starts cracking you up at the thought of it.
I mean,
And
I'm laughing at it right
I
now,
mean,
but
yeah,
also,
it's kind of
it's
funny,
also because
but
I think you're fucking insane.
yeah.
Just imagine watching that fucking movie and someone's next to you is like, well, would you have a look at that penis right there?
Venus.
Oh,
Recommend
I'm now going
watching
off
the
the
movie
belief
with
that you just sort of
insane-
cracked halfway through this movie.
Probably that's why it went so fast.
Yeah.
Look, this time, I mean, also during Promare, I just paused it, looked at my friend. Do you need to have a little giggle time, or can we continue?
Sounds like you need a little giggle time.
But yeah, that's oh god, I never want to see this movie again unless I'm either high or drunk.
That sounded so real. That sounded so real in that moment. Look, I'd never want to watch this fucking movie again.
Unless
I find, oh my god, I always think I'm overreacting when I say stuff like that, and then I hear someone else say it, and I'm like, I feel so seen.
absolutely.
Vindication.
I have now seen this movie twice. I just need to put that fact out there. This was my second viewing.
I would have viewed this high or drunk just to see whether maybe you're missing some spiritual.
I should have, but I had to do it sober so I could discuss it coherently.
It would be better if you just showed up and was like, I don't know if I'm imagining this, but we're
To give a look behind the scene, just thinking of this movie is causing me to drink. I'm currently drinking alcohol as we're recording.
This is a much later recording session than we usually do. It's very much evening and not fucking 11 in the morning. Like we
Yeah,
normally
It's
do.
loud every
thing to
11.
sort of specify as well. And this is also my first drink.
I am not drinking. I felt like this conversation needed to be sober.
I didn't care.
Let me check when I first
I
watched
care for
this.
every other episode, not to act like I'm unprofessional when it comes to these, because I very much am. It's just this movie.
I watched this film originally 9 years ago in 2014.
Jesus.
Ugh.
I don't know
You
why
were
I've marked
due
it as
for
sub when I
rewatch.
didn't. Oh,
I'm very content never thinking about this movie again.
Yeah, scores, everyone.
So before we go to scores, I want to go through some interesting tidbits that I found.
Ooh,
Okay.
some facts.
Yeah. So an interesting thing is that the film was rendered across 960 workstations, so computers essentially. I feel like that's like a low number because I'm pretty sure they made a big deal of Force Awakens. Fuck, it's in the trailer. Millennium Falcon sequence being done on like a huge amount of PCs.
Yeah, I kind of remember that.
Yeah. Obviously far more powerful PCs.
Oh yeah,
now
because
than then.
that was 2015. This was 2001.
Well, it would have been they built the studio in Hawaii in 96 or 7. So you're going back then. So this originally would have gone into production just after the first Toy Story came out.
Damn.
They all together rendered 141,964 frames.
Damn.
That's a lot of frames.
Don't have a bar for comparison because there's a fluctuating number that goes around for Akira, which is between 180,000 and like 210,000, and I can't find veracity on any in particular claim. Okay. The budget was $137 million. How much do you think it made back as a rough guess?
Not fucking enough.
Yeah, definitely not a profit.
No. I want to say
I'd say about a half of that.
Okay, so half of that being 137.
You're making
maths now.
68.5, I think, roughly.
Yeah.
I would have said 75 max, so
85.1 million.
oh.
Yeah.
For something that, you have an initial audience because, people like the games will go and see it.
Yeah.
And maybe their marketing was just really shit because things like this tend to just be, we'll make some money, maybe not a lot, but we'll make some.
Well, that's the interesting thing where 30 million was spent on the marketing.
Yeah, because budgets like those tend to have a lot going into the marketing.
Yeah, so 30 of that is the marketing. 45 million of it alone was just on the construction of the studio.
That also makes sense.
Because remember, this was one of the first CG productions of its kind. They had to build all of that stuff from scratch. It was built in Hawaii, and luckily, even though Square Pictures, which was founded to produce this, is gone, it was folded into the internal Square Enix company, so they still produce stuff there. I think they still produce most of the cutscenes for the games there and stuff like that. So the studio is still there, it's still in use as far as I'm aware. But yeah, 45 million, that's quite a...
Just construction.
Yeah.
What was one of the other facts I wanted to mention? Oh yeah, Aki Ross, the character played by Ming-Na Wen, was intended or visualized as like a digital celebrity. So she would appear in other movies as like another character, I guess.
That's
Oh my
so
god.
fucking stupid.
Because I found an uncomfortable amount of articles that talked about her. And there were an uncomfortable amount of magazine spreads.
You showed me one of these, didn't you?
I think I may have, but One that I didn't go looking for, but I know exists, was a bikini.
Yeah, that's what I was scared of when you said digital celebrity.
Yes.
I'm like, what kind?
Yeah, so they
What
done a lot of...
genre?
So at least some of the marketing budget would have been spent on, like, I believe... I'm not even going to pretend to know what magazine it's in. I'm not going to say Playboy, because I know it wasn't Playboy. It's not that bad.
Something to that caliber.
Something to that caliber. There was a massive section in it that was about Aki, and it had, you know, like, bikini shots and stuff like that, which I gotta raise the question, why? But then I remember that I remember the internet exists.
People will buy it. People will buy it. This was also the turn of the century when everything was like, well, look at this is the future, guys. This is what's totally going to be normal in about 5 to 10 years.
That is what a lot of stuff that I could find about this movie talks about, is like how good it looks, how this is the future of cinema, or people kind of, I think, as they do now, unfortunately, kind of deriding animation as like an actual art form, as like an actual medium of cinema. So yeah, that was some of the interesting stuff I found. Oh, the Wachowskis were showing this ahead of working on the Animatrix.
Weirdly enough, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't really know what to do with that information, but I am aware of it.
It's just one of those things, like, okay.
Yeah.
That's a nice little tidbit to
Okay.
stick in your brain.
Yep, that's
Cool.
yeah.
Fun facts of the day.
Yep. Oh, I should also mention, I wanted to mention that Donald Sutherland's character, Dr. Sid, is half a reference to a long-standing character in the Final Fantasy franchise.
That was half a reference.
Because in the games he's called Sid with a C,
Oh,
and in the movie he is Sid with an S.
yeah.
They're like, well, we can't reference him directly. I'll just change the fucking letter.
Every game has a character called Sid, and they're not the same person. So I don't
Just
know why they
change them.
changed the spelling.
No, it would have been such a nice nod to have the original.
Exactly.
Yeah. At that point, just
Oh
go
my
ahead.
God.
It's a staple. It's like Stan Lee in Marvel movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, yup.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's that.
That was Spirits Within.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was, sadly. So scores. Who wants to start?
Final Fantasy 1 out of 10.
I'll be generous enough for 1.5 because its shitty dialogue made me laugh.
I wish it did that for me.
I'm gonna go 2.
How,
S-
2?
Hold on, I got a
High praise.
justification. Some of the dialogue is unintentionally funny. Steve Buscemi starts sounding fucking funnier and funnier the more he doesn't sound like an actual real human being. And I do respect the technical endeavor that this was, and you know, the resulting product being still relatively interesting to look at the very least. It does not have a color palette, but there are moments that are very visually nice.
Yeah, I guess that has some merit, I'll give you that.
There are some incredible shots in this film. Like, any of the things that take place on the alien planet and Aki's dreams always tend to have like a really nice artistic look to them.
Yeah.
And like I said, I am a sucker for CG stuff as like anime productions go. This film sucks, but I respect the technical process put into this. So yeah, 2 out of 10.
I just feel bad for the team. They were given a shit story, and then they were told, like, oh yeah, mocap. Do the mocap, do the
Yeah.
animation for it. And I'm like, waste of talent and time.
Yes. I don't think maybe some of the writers went on to do something interesting. I don't know. One of the writers wrote Apollo 13 for Ron Howard. So you
Damn.
know they fell far. The other one, Hero iRobot in 2004, which, you know, I don't think was highly regarded. That's the
Will Smith movie.
the Will Smith movie, which is technically an adaptation of Isaac Asimov's book.
Yeah.
In
I
a
mean-
sense.
Technically, that book is like a compilation.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, like, technically.
So yeah.
So yeah, the writers aren't well known.
Well, yeah, if you have, if you have that like on your record,
Yes.
you know, your people look up your IMDb because that's what people do, and they're like, "Oh, you wrote that."
I mean, we have
No,
to
it's not
take
that I
the,
didn't like it. It's just
we have to take the you know, the what am I looking for here? We have to look at this at the lens of, like, this film's not long come out. IMDb technically doesn't exist yet,
Mhm.
but your name's still attached to that,
Yeah.
and they can look at the Writers Guild for it.
Yeah.
Assuming this was a union production,
Let's hope
I hope it
Yeah,
was. I hope they get residuals
it
for
deserves
this.
to be.
Yeah.
They're still getting their 10 cents every month, so
Every
Yes!
mention.
This is other than one of the writers who obviously done Apollo 13, the other one, this is the biggest credit on their list.
oh,
I
that
guess-
makes me actually sad.
I guess iRobot in a sense, but to be fair, no one actually remembers iRobot.
No.
I only remember iRobot because it was one of the few movies that released on a VHS format that was HD.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Because that was a strange little era in home media history, which I
Yeah,
won't go into.
That's
here.
a whole other topic that we just do not have time to talk about right now.
No, but that's the only thing I know that movie for.
Anyway, thank you very much for listening to this weird fucking episode
Oh
of
god.
Anime
I
Lane.
love remote episodes. We go more feral.
Yeah, this was an interesting experiment that fell flat in its face before we even recorded, but we were still committed to actually recording it.
Look at her
Go us.
committing to the best of content.
Yeah. This movie was so worth it.
Yeah.
It was sarcasm, my dude.
Oh, we're coming to the end of this first season of Anime Lane. So look forward to something special to wrap up the end of the season. So yeah, when I say the end of the season, you're not gonna notice any difference of either episode count or release schedule. We're not gonna break or anything. It's just gonna be like a nice
For
little
our
way
sake.
to mark like
Yeah.
1 year, and on a back, like the background part of it, maybe just a bit neater
Yeah.
for me. So yeah, we'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye.